She stepped off the transport, boots crunching dry soil underfoot as humid wind curled around her armor. A dozen pairs of eyes tracked her arrival, slitted, compound, glowing. She felt the weight of their stares but didn't flinch. To them, she was an anomaly. Human. Alone. And proven. The garrison was a patchwork outpost, forged from prefab metals and alien tech, surrounded by untamed jungles stretching to the horizon. It pulsed with unseen life, yet the alien soldiers weren't watching the trees, they were watching her. A six-limbed veteran with rust-colored scales let out a throaty laugh, nudging the horned brute beside him. That's the human recruit? Stars save us. Is she here to patch wounds or open them with tears? Another chuckled, mandibles clacking. Maybe she thinks the predators will pity her soft eyes. She didn't respond. Their words bounced off her like dust. She scanned the treeline, eyes narrowing, not in fear, but with calculated awareness. Her visor remained clipped to her belt and used. She didn't need it yet. Not here. Not for them. The commanding officer, a grizzled exo-infantry hybrid, motioned to her with two clawed fingers. Stay behind the lead unit. Watch. Learn. Don't die. She nodded once. That was enough. As briefing protocols played on holoscreens, most of the garrison milled about, half listening. The sector had reported unusual activity. Trade caravans ambushed, villagers gone silent, signals fading mid-transmission. Blame had landed squarely on a clan of off-world raiders known for their brutality. But the data didn't match. No ransom. No traces. Just absence. She read the reports. Noticed patterns. Silence before the vanishings. Energy fluctuations near jungle paths. Shifting trails, almost as if something massive moved undetected. The others laughed off her suggestions, citing rookie nerves. Maybe you miss Earth's grass, someone sneered. She let it go. There was nothing to prove yet. Later, during equipment check, a field sensor swept the perimeter. It blinked, just once, then returned to normal. The technician frowned, tapped it, then moved on. Another glitch, maybe? Or maybe not. In the barracks, conversations shifted to bets. Which soldier would kill the most raiders? Which one would accidentally push the human into a bog first? They joked about hanging her armor on a branch as bait. No one objected. She sat silently in her assigned corner, cleaning her gear, cataloging terrain maps, adjusting her boots. Let them talk. She was watching more than they were. At dawn, units deployed into the wild. The jungle loomed, thick with hanging vines and thick-rooted flora. Alien insects buzzed around, and far-off shrieks echoed now and then. She walked in silence behind them, unshaken. She observed droppings that hadn't been classified in the outpost scans. Trees showed signs of something massive brushing past, not snapped violently, but moved with purpose. This wasn't blind carnage. It was controlled movement. The alien ahead scoffed. You're staring at bark like it holds secrets. She didn't answer. It did. Later that day, an alien trooper tossed a fruit at her. Welcome gift, predator bait. She caught it midair, turned it over, then dropped it without a word. It was hollowed out. Something had eaten through it with precision, not chewing, not clawing. Clean, methodical. Not typical fauna behavior. That night, back at camp, someone played back surveillance from an earlier patrol. The footage showed nothing but dense brush. Then a flicker. A shadow. Massive. Quadruped. It moved between frames, not on them. The image glitched, cut off. They laughed it off as faulty equipment. She didn't. By the third day, no one had heard from Recon Unit 4. They were supposed to return the previous evening. A search party was formed. She volunteered. The commander sighed, then allowed it, perhaps hoping she'd see something that would finally scare her off. The team followed a path into thicker undergrowth. No signs of struggle. No gear left behind. Just sudden emptiness. An eerie quiet settled. Birds no longer called. Insects had vanished. The jungle, somehow, had stopped breathing. As they moved deeper, one of the aliens muttered. This feels wrong. The others agreed, but no one admitted fear. Not yet. She touched a low branch, deep scratches, uniform spacing. Talons. But too high for local predators. And not recent. This was a pattern. She traced it backwards, triangulating with other damage she'd seen. The pattern told a story, and she was beginning to understand it. They reached a clearing. Perfectly round. Grass untouched. But in the center was a pile, bones. Stripped clean. Not random. Placed. Arranged. Almost like a warning. She stepped forward, studied the remains. No blast marks. No burns. No slashes. Just a single piercing wound through each skull. Precise. Cold. Efficient. Then, a whisper in the wind. Leaves rustled where no breeze moved. She looked up. Nothing. But she didn't relax. Whatever did this wasn't hunting out of hunger. It was methodical, calculated. She turned back to the squad. This wasn't the raiders. The laughter stopped. One of them sneered. You got a better theory? She nodded. Yes. They didn't ask. But the silence was longer this time. And behind them, in the shadows, the trees watched back. The second night brought unease that no one dared admit. The jungle wasn't loud anymore. No chirps, no fluttering wings, not even wind. Just a stillness that pressed against the lungs. Patrol units were assigned, but volunteers came slowly. The bravado from earlier had dried up. 2 alien recruits from a reptilian clan refused to go past the light perimeter. Not scared, they claimed. Just smart. But something was watching. Not a raider, not a known predator, something older, cleverer, territorial. Motion sensors along the East Trail registered movement, but when teams arrived, nothing was there. No tracks. No trace of departure. One of the sensors was bent sideways, not torn. *move star. The squad commander dismissed it as tampering. Kara didn't speak. She watched. She remembered the markings, the odd silence, the methodical kills. At dawn, another unit failed to report in. Not the ones that joked or jeered, these were disciplined veterans. Their last recorded position was along a high ridge path. A recon team was sent. What returned wasn't a team. It was a single trooper, eyes wide, shaking, armor slashed open across the back. He said no words. Not one. Just kept repeating a whisper that made even the hardened ones lean in to hear. Asterisk. It stood in front of me. And I didn't hear it move. Asterisk. Kara stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching the others argue. Was it cloaking? No, too smooth. Stealth drone? Unlikely. Someone asked if it could be a domesticated raider ambush. Another guessed it might be an AI hybrid beast. All guesses. No answers. By late afternoon, they tried pushing deeper again. This time with full support. More weapons. Aerial scouts. Still, the jungle swallowed signal after signal. Visuals cut out. Noise returned briefly, then vanished again. The predator wasn't just attacking. It was manipulating territory. Hurting them. Testing reactions. And succeeding. Kara found more claw marks. Higher. Fresh. Still warm from the gouge. She pressed a hand against it and closed her eyes. The creature wasn't random. It wasn't hungry. It was asserting dominance. But not over the jungle, over the intruders. One of the younger aliens, trying to prove himself, separated from the group to set up a watch beacon. He didn't come back. Only the beacon did, thrown into camp that evening, still active, blinking red. Panic didn't show openly, but it was there. Soldiers gripped weapons tighter. Conversation stopped when they passed Kara, as if her calm was an offense. Some wanted to retreat. Others blamed her presence, calling it cursed. It never hunted here before the human came, someone muttered. No one corrected him. Later that night, the predator came close. They didn't see it. They felt it. A slow, deliberate pressure settled into every muscle. Soldiers stared into the dark, some too frightened to blink. Thermal sensors caught a massive heat signature, but it didn't move like a beast. It moved like something calculating, never repeating a path, never triggering the same point twice. Then silence. They found blood in the morning. Just blood. No body. Trails that stopped mid-step. No drag marks. Like something lifted the victim up, and never let them hit the ground again. Kara walked into the jungle alone that morning. No permission. No squad. She returned hours later without a scratch. When asked what she saw, she said only, "It's circling. But not me." The commander pressed. "What is it?" She didn't hesitate. "It's watching us think. And it's deciding." He didn't believe her. Few did. But that night, another death came. Not loud. Not messy. A shriek, a thud, and then nothing. The body was gone before anyone could reach it. The only trace left behind was a crushed communicator. One claw mark across the casing. The joke stopped. So did the sneering. The camp reorganized. Spotlights turned inward. Everyone watched the trees now. Every rustle made fingers twitch toward triggers. The bravest among them whispered Kara's name with suspicion. And still, she remained calm. Focused. Unafraid. What unnerved them most wasn't the deaths. It was that she never looked surprised. The command structure began to collapse without announcement. Orders became suggestions. Patrols became punishments. Even the elite among them stopped pretending. They didn't understand what they were facing, and fear had quietly become command's loudest voice. By the time a second perimeter breach occurred without alarms, some of the outpost officers stopped sleeping entirely. Kara, on the other hand, moved with sharper intent. Not faster, not louder, just more deliberate. She began marking her own paths, using etched lines along the bark, notations in mud, subtle signals only she recognized. She wasn't lost in the jungle. She was speaking to it. Or through it. While others stayed close to artificial safety, she ventured out further each morning. Once someone followed her. He returned limping, silent, eyes wide. When questioned, he just shook his head and said she walked with ghosts. In truth, Kara wasn't tracking the predator, she was studying it. Observing the pattern, not the violence. It avoided unnecessary kills. It never struck twice from the same angle. And it never made noise unless it wanted attention. Every appearance was strategic. Every disappearance a message. She began recording timings, intervals, weather conditions, terrain response. Not for them. For herself. And slowly, something in her expression changed, from cautious watchfulness to quiet certainty. She wasn't surviving. She was adapting. She set traps, not with explosives or weapons, but with movement cues. Branches laid to snap in specific ways. Scents from local flora smeared in strategic places. She never expected to catch it, she expected to learn its choices. What it ignored, what it avoided, what it circled. Each day revealed new information, and with each revelation, she understood one more uncomfortable truth. This wasn't just a beast. It had a sense of control. Awareness. Territory logic. Not intelligence in the traditional sense, but strategic instinct beyond anything the others could imagine. It was neither wild nor tame. It was native, dominant, and reactive to only one kind of stimulus, threat hierarchy. The alien soldiers hadn't respected the jungle. They barked orders, scorched foliage, left blood in their wake. That was their first mistake. The second was assuming apex predators required provocation to act. This one required only intrusion. Kara shifted her posture, her methods. She didn't move like the others anymore. She didn't announce her presence. She learned to breathe differently, move with the natural wind, time her steps to the sway of the canopy. She began sleeping on elevated platforms she wove herself, above scent level, hidden among the vines. She wasn't camping. She was integrating. The first time she saw it fully, it didn't attack. It stood 30 feet away, crouched low, eyes bright and unblinking. It didn't growl or roar. It simply looked at her, then faded back into the undergrowth, the leaves closing behind it like a ripple in water. She didn't chase. She just nodded once. She returned to camp and said nothing. But her behavior changed. She didn't flinch at noises. Didn't question sensor alerts. When asked what she thought the creature was, she answered, "Not enemy. Not friend. But watching." The others assumed she'd snapped. Until the next night, when another attack occurred, and Kara was the only one who wasn't even approached. Her sector remained untouched. Clean. Untouched by claw, footstep, or breath. Someone finally asked her what she was doing differently. She replied, "I'm not pretending I belong. I'm showing I understand I don't." No one laughed. They didn't know if it was humility or a warning. She began advising patrols, suggesting movement patterns, angles to avoid, times not to engage. Her suggestions were vague, but those who followed them stayed alive. Those who didn't stopped reporting in. Behind closed channels, High Command started reviewing her files again. Her prior record showed survival courses, biome studies, and terror response adaptability simulations. No kill records. No heroics. Just near-perfect environmental retention and behavioral adaptation. Her scores weren't high because of aggression. They were high because she never treated any environment as a battlefield, but as a language to be read. That's what unsettled them most. She wasn't succeeding because she was stronger. She was succeeding because she was fluent in threat logic. The creature didn't need to fear humans. It needed only to acknowledge which ones understood how to survive under its rules. And Kara? She wasn't fighting to escape. She was earning permission to remain. The balance tipped without warning. No alarms, no screams. Just absence. One squad gone in under 4 minutes. Their last message was a single word. Shifting. No location, no footage. The camp fell into silence afterward, not the silence of confusion but dread. No one volunteered for recon anymore. Orders were obeyed without question, not from discipline, but fear. Kara wasn't in camp when it happened. She'd been walking the ridge trail, marking territorial boundaries with mud and scent. Not as a signal to the creature, but as acknowledgement. A sign she understood the lines not to cross. When she returned and saw the shaken officers, she didn't ask questions. She just sat down, opened her journal, and updated the map. The outpost's hierarchy began to deform. The ones who'd once mocked her now watched her every move, copying her pace, her methods, even her silences. But mimicry wasn't enough. What Kara had done wasn't technique, it was interpretation. She wasn't avoiding death. She was engaging with it on neutral terms. That evening, the creature came closer than ever before. Not charging, not hiding. Just walking the edge of camp as if inspecting their defenses. It didn't react to gun turrets or drones. It moved with absolute indifference, pausing now and then to sniff the air. One soldier fired a warning shot. The predator didn't run. It tilted its head, then disappeared like mist. Kara didn't speak to the shooter. She didn't need to. By morning, his post was vacant, armor shredded and folded neatly beside his weapon. A message, but not for her. She walked the perimeter after sunrise, pausing at that spot. No blood. Just compressed earth, disturbed only by heavy clawed feet. She crouched, touched the prints, and quietly muttered, "It knows restraint." The creature could have slaughtered the entire camp. It hadn't. It moved through them like a knife through water, choosing targets not by hunger, but intent. The ones who disrespected the terrain, who shouted too loud, burned too much, killed for convenience, they vanished first. The careful ones lasted longer. Those who followed Kara's pattern survived longest. But survival wasn't a reward. It was a test. One she knew was nearing conclusion. On the 4th day, Command pulled the plug. Evac order issued. Extraction in 16 hours. No one protested. The proudest warriors were now quiet, stripped of bluster, reduced to cautious glances at trees that moved when they shouldn't. Yet Kara didn't pack. She requested extended clearance. It was denied. She didn't argue. Instead, she walked into the jungle before dawn, alone. By midday, the camp sensors triggered, but not from outside. The creature returned. Fully visible now. It moved between tents, ignoring armed guards. Its gaze searched. And when it saw her walking from the trees behind it, it stopped. Not with surprise, recognition. It stood, tall and gleaming in daylight, muscles tense beneath its hide. It didn't growl. It stepped aside. She walked past it, not looking back. The camp was dead silent. The creature turned, followed her pace. Behind her. Not beside. Not ahead. A half step behind. That was the moment the fear turned to realization. She hadn't tamed it. She hadn't trained it. She'd earned a place in its world, not as a master, but a peer. The commander whispered, "It walks with her." Someone else murmured, "No. It walks behind her." In that instant, everything redefined. The beast wasn't proof of her survival. It was evidence of something far more unsettling. Humans didn't dominate through size or strength. They didn't impose their will through brute power. They observed, calculated, and adapted until the wild accepted their presence. And when it didn't, they didn't fight it head on. They walked alongside it. Behind it. Or let it walk behind them. The creature didn't kill again. Not that day. It waited near the forest's edge as Kara gave her final report. No drama. No fanfare. She simply said, "The threat wasn't the species. It was the assumption that this land belonged to someone else." When the dropship arrived, Kara didn't board. She stepped back into the jungle. The apex turned and followed. No one tried to stop her. The debrief logs didn't capture what mattered. They showed troop losses, irregular sensor activity, incomplete surveillance footage, and a line noting one human remained on-site after evac. No one filed a protest. No one questioned the decision. The logs marked Kara as unaccounted for but presumed alive. That phrasing spread across channels faster than most combat statistics ever did. Word filtered through the ranks of a human who walked into a jungle that swallowed squads whole and returned with something following her that none dared name. Official sources downplayed it, citing atmospheric interference and hallucinations under environmental stress. But the footage was undeniable. One clip, in particular, was paused and analyzed in silence throughout the command tier. It showed Kara walking across a clearing, relaxed, unhurried. Behind her, massive, deliberate steps in sync. Not chasing. Not protecting. Just following. No one had ever seen that creature so exposed in daylight. Especially not that still. It wasn't submitting. It was observing, mirroring her presence. That disturbed more minds than any kill count. Alien commanders called it psychological manipulation. Others, cultural trickery. But in private meetings, the tone was different. They whispered of a species that never led with force but with calculation. A species that didn't dominate ecosystems with strength, but with understanding. Kara's choice to stay behind wasn't framed as desertion. It was catalogued as continuing field integration. What no one wanted to admit was the truth behind her silence. She wasn't building a relationship with the predator. She had recognized the truth older than galactic treaties. True apex status isn't claimed by violence, it's offered by acknowledgement. Among alien mercenary circles, a rumor formed that if a human walks alone on a death world, you don't fear them because they're dangerous. You fear them because something more dangerous might be watching from the trees, choosing not to attack because of them. Recruitment files began to shift. A rise in demand for human advisors and biointegrated warfare. Not frontline combatants. Observers. Listeners. Pattern readers. Analysts with patience, not aggression. The kind who didn't flinch when a jungle went silent. Because they understood that silence wasn't absence, it was language. In the months that followed, small changes appeared across operations. Elite alien squads mimicked Kara's quiet approach, pausing before entering dense zones, avoiding unnecessary noise, walking paths with environmental deference. It didn't help. Those who imitated the method but not the understanding still vanished. Only those who adapted internally, who stopped seeing death worlds as battlegrounds and started treating them as sovereign systems, began to return alive. A phrase emerged across systems, unprompted, almost ritualistic in tone. If the jungle watches, do not run. Watch back. The origin was never cited, but it always followed conversations about her. Back on Earth, a closed-door session reviewed the field data. One analyst stated plainly, "This wasn't a survival story. It was a message." The room went quiet. A projection played again. Kara's last recorded transmission. No visuals. Just audio. Her voice steady. "The jungle responds to intent, not presence. It doesn't care what you are. It only remembers what you mean." There was no request for extraction. No plea for reinforcement. No farewell. Just that single transmission. She was never retrieved. But she wasn't lost. A later satellite sweep showed the predator again. Same size. Same terrain. It moved through the region freely, but never near the outpost ruins. A single human-shaped heat signature appeared occasionally. Never closer than a kilometer. Never farther than 3. The message was received. Across the stars, recruitment divisions stopped underestimating lone humans. No more jokes. No more casual insults about soft skin or small numbers. Not after a single human walked into a domain ruled by silence, and didn't just survive, but was allowed to remain. Because surviving is one thing. Being followed by what others flee from, that's something else entirely. And when that happens, you don't question the human. You question the thing behind her, and why it hasn't killed you yet.